this next panel discussion on cyber resilience in an uncertain world, I would like to welcome on the stage a very competent and very knowledgeable woman who is leading Latvia's efforts in raising our cyber resilience. Let's welcome our dear moderator from KiberACS Cybersecurity Academy, Miss Ieva Ilves. Welcome, Ieva. Joining her for the talk is the Deputy Commander of the Canadian Armed Forces Cyber Command, Brigadier General Scott MacGregor. Welcome. We'd like to see on the stage also the Director of the National AI Center of Latvia, Dr. Natalie Cernecka. Welcome. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
Next up, he's the Sales Engineering Lead for Central and Eastern Europe at CrowdStrike, Mr. Robert Michalski. Welcome.
Hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you.
And filling the last seats, the Deputy Director and Chief of Staff of the NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence, Lieutenant Colonel Christoph Kühn. Welcome, Christoph. All right, Ieva, are you ready? I will give you the questions. We have a timer, and we are ready to start.
The timer is...
It will be on the screen in a second.
It will come, okay. Thank you very much, and thank you, dear panelists, for joining, and conference organizers to bringing us together. I think we don't have really an easy topic, and we probably can go all kind of directions. We have to speak about cyber resilience in the world which is not certain, or it's uncertain, as organizers have put it. And then we have to kind of think in a decade terms of emerging threats. And I think we all have learned already through the panel discussions earlier, and probably going to see more of different diverse topics, understanding that cyber resilience is a very complex process. It's not only about technology, it's about people, about how we build processes within organizations, and also how we protect and defend them. So I think we have a very broad scope to discuss. I'm really glad to see that we are also very diverse in representation here, not only by gender. Well, with gender we can kind of good, but we are diverse, representing different organizations. And indeed, like Moderator mentioned, I work here on multiple projects. One of them is education, but I also work deeply involved in Ukraine on cybersecurity, different angles. And I work also actually with Natalie on recently established National AI Board. So we have a bit of AI presence here. We have a presence from Canada on Cyber Command, where we hope to hear sort of military synergy with cyber resilience. We have a center, excellence center in Tallinn, which is in a way a knowledge hub for the Alliance on what's going on cyber resilience. And we have a private sector, I think, which can add really interesting angle, knowing that private sector is the one who holds a lot of both being attacked, but being also super advanced in defending networks like your company, CrowdStrike, and then Natalia from the AI Center Director. I know you are just recently in the position, but with your background knowledge, I think we can really have a diverse conversation. So what I would like to start with is actually discussing the threat landscape. Let's, before we getting into how we build the resilience, if I could ask from all of your perspectives, how do you see the current threat landscape developing with this 10-year perspective? I don't know how far we can think into emerging technologies. Do you see that threat landscape changing? What would be your maybe initial departure points in assessing where we are and where we're heading now with a fast development and innovation in technology segment? Obviously, it's an AI that comes to the mind. It's a big buzzword for last years, but we know that there's a quantum discussed, and maybe you see other different technologies coming up. So what would be your threat landscape illustration? Maybe we can start from your commander perspective.
Thank you. Yes, from a military perspective, Canadian Forces Cyber Command perspective, but I think it would be shared amongst civilian and military partners abroad. One of the things that we're seeing in terms of threats that are increasing right now, and will stretch out for the next decade to 2035, are threats to our critical infrastructure. And one thing that is certainly one of our mission sets that we're cited on from a military perspective is looking at critical infrastructure nationally, but also the critical infrastructure that is tied to military capabilities. And so in that critical infrastructure, what we're doing as a military organization charged with cyber defense is working closely with our Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, CCDCOE, in identifying all of the significant critical infrastructure that has gaps to security, that has increased surfaces for threat vectors to enter into them, and making sure that together we patch that up, because most of the time the critical infrastructure that would be attacked does have a national security implication. And so even right now in Canada with CAFCYBERCOM, our Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, it is a deliberate effort in making sure that we catalog all the strategically relevant critical infrastructure as a priority, as we will see it as a primary threat, and we see that in terms of the threat intelligence we're receiving, that will continue for the coming years. In addition to that, though, for our critical infrastructure, we're looking at partners and allies, and a defended Europe from a critical infrastructure, a defended Latvia from a critical infrastructure is a defended Canada as well. As we heard from Jessica, cyber doesn't have any borders, and from a cyber domain perspective, that does not rest quiet on us. So working with our Latvian partners here as well, seized with looking at critical infrastructure vulnerabilities, working closely with the CERT.LV, and again, a secure Latvia, a secure Europe is a secure Canada.
If I can push you a little bit, and I'm a big fan because I'm following what Latvians are doing also together jointly with you and threat hunting operations. I think it's an amazing proactive thing to protect your networks, like you said, critical infrastructure. Have you seen anything new? And I know some of the things not easy to share from military domain, but do you see change in that threat landscape?
Sure. From a Canadian perspective, to use a statistic, about 20% increase in potential threats, but there's also complacency that we're seeing in terms of critical infrastructure companies, organizations that are not subscribing to cybersecurity, not getting host-based sensors inserted so that we can monitor it. But yes, we are seeing a little bit of an increase of anomalies of cyber threat actors. But what we're also seeing is a critical infrastructure ecosystem that needs to pick up their socks in terms of cyber hygiene, in terms of cyber resiliency, to help us help them.
Thank you. I will come back on emerging threats because I also kind of dual mindset myself, seeing technology innovating and yet struggling with very simple basic topics that were there 10 years, speaking of cyber hygiene and some other elements. Natalia, if I can ask you on AI side, and know that you don't come necessarily from security or military background, but investing now and thinking also on national level to invest and build AI, what would you see, what would be your threat perception? Where do we have to really focus our attention between zillions of priorities?
Right, excellent question. And I would agree with the previous speaker that critical infrastructure, attacks on critical infrastructure are extremely important. I'm not a cybersecurity expert, although I worked on a number of projects training people in cybersecurity. And I remember my first cybersecurity conference, it was 10 years ago in Paris. And those were guys, so 10 years ago, very different landscape. All right, and there was a guy there who said that one day there will be a cyber attack that will entail a loss of human lives, and this will be the day that we will start taking cybersecurity seriously. So he said, I don't wish this to happen, but I'm afraid this needs to happen for us to understand. So now, 10 years ago, we are living in a different world. We are living in a different world in terms of geopolitical threats, particularly here in Europe, but also in Asia-Pacific region, and also in terms of this AI wave or hype, or how you call it, which obviously is a threat multiplier. So none of us has a crystal ball to look into the future, and also, as you see, when you know knowns, no unknown unknowns, so there will be many unknown unknowns, and I think what I'm worried most, and not about the rise of AI, as AI is rising, probably there will be waves, and we will learn somehow to deal with it and to adapt to it. Critical infrastructure, geopolitical tensions are extremely important, and we are learning how to deal with them. But is there anything out there which we do not know yet? That's probably my biggest concern. Maybe intersection of cyber, quantum and AI would be big threat multiplier, so this is another area to watch.
Not to put you on spot, but if I can, regulations.
Yeah.
Are you finding them currently in EU heavily discussed AI Act? And also in your previous experience, you know, working in Europe.
Yeah.
Do you see them, they are really helping? Are they doing a job?
Right, I would rather say that, you know, we have standards in IT, we have standards in security. For the time being, we do not have similar standards for AI systems. Probably they will come, but again, referring to what the previous speaker said, cyber hygiene, and there will be a certain amount of AI hygiene. We need to get our basics right. So regulation is very good, and we will adapt and adopt gradually, but I think even existing standards are important. Standards, I mean, the regulations have zero value if we don't enforce them.
Thanks. Let me ask you from CrowdStrike, obviously private sector sometimes sees more actually than governments, because you simply are working with very diverse clients and servicing. What do you see from threat landscape perspective? Given the new technologies, since we're trying to focus on, you know, how the technologies are merging, are you seeing in your work now the same AI being more applied? What is your take currently? Has threat landscape changed substantially?
It has changed over time, for sure. We see more shades of gray, I would say. So I agree on diagnosis on, you know, known unknowns, and the unknowns that we basically do not know, and we have to cope with them somehow. Yet there are some things that we can measure, and we do measure those things as CrowdStrike. So example, a few years back, we started to measure how much malware is being used at different stages of the attacks. And a few years back, that was 50%, right? And at the time, it was already something that not too many people expected, because we as a security industry are very well accustomed to fight against malware. We created software, we created processes, we trained people to fight against malware. And then we found out that it's just 50%, right? So, and that has actually changed over time. And for the last year, it's roughly 20% of the attacks. So that's not a lot, and if you look at some other reports, like the recent report from ENISA on threat landscape for 2025, then the number is even smaller, it's 8%. And out of all of this, close to 80% would be ransomware. The other guys would be rats, would be info stealers. Then the question is, all right, so if that's just 20%, what else is out there, right? What we should be protecting from. And the answer to that really falls into two directions. One is abusing the systems or the tools that are at the operating system natively, so using living off the land techniques that are being discovered over time, new things all the time, even though I thought at some point in time that we have reached the peak on that, and that would be nothing new to discover, yet we find new stuff on that. And then the other thing is abusing credentials. This is low-hanging fruit, right? And as much as we became better and better, capturing these patterns in malware, in behavior engines for the living of the land, the identity is still a problem, because it's a problem because a human being is a problem. We are so variable in the end that it's not easy to say, this is a Robert Michalski pattern for the last month or year, and then his misbehavior can be easily captured. It's not as simple as that. And if you add on top of it that there are changes on the criminal marketplaces and specifically to identity, we see that there is a lot of commodization happening for identity brokers. So the barrier to enter that area is very, very low right now. It's like with food, more food, lower quality, really, but it's there. So it's very easy to use. So, and it's very dangerous because it bypasses very often all the guardrails or the firewalls or the great on-premises solutions that we've built over years, because it's identity and it's not easy to understand what's going on.
So if I can also follow up a little bit on focusing on threat and threat actors and new technologies, do you see in your job, for example, AI being applied and being more useful to attackers?
Of course, it's been our reality for a few years already, and what has changed most significantly is that we see the threat actors that are creating malware ad hoc, or they're creating scripts ad hoc, or they are figuring a way how to make a next step. So if you look like what this living of the land techniques are consisted of, there is lots of hands-on keyboard activities. And these hands-on keyboard activities can be automated to some extent, but very often the more sophisticated threat actors would do it manually. Because with manual actions, you can avoid being captured by simple tricks based on time, based on the level of activity that you expose, and so on and so forth. So they are using malware for creating next step action. They're using AI, sorry for that, and they're using AI, for example, as part of the phishing kits. Phishing still is a predominant initial vector attack right now. So there is like probably 60 to 70% of the attacks that are based on phishing, and AI is very, very useful on that front. And one of the interesting things that we have observed over the last 2 years, it was a sudden uptake in phishing attacks, where somebody is calling you, pretending to be an IT guy, and that IT guy is asking you to do a certain action, right? And it's very, very reliable. And we've been trained to not answer a phishing email. We are somehow, we can recognize certain patterns. But if somebody is calling us, requesting an immediate action, the sense of urgency and the quality of this call makes it really not easy to not fall a victim of it.
So you're still seeing AI as sort of amplifier of the things that attackers are doing, just doing it better, quicker, like writing
faster,
malware codes, targeting, etc. You don't see yet agentic AI, sort of an attack who is independently working as an AI and basically making independent decisions in a systems. You see that there is a manual element and there are still sort of, we are not there yet.
We will be.
You haven't seen from your CrowdStrike experience?
We haven't seen like we've seen automated attacks, but they are not per se the attacks that were driven by agentic tooling. At least we cannot prove that was the case. So what we see based on the raw telemetry is more like using AI for a certain function, but not like a tool that would automate everything and take autonomous decisions during the attack.
So we are still in a race there between attackers and defenders. So let me go to the center in Tallinn. As a knowledge hub for the whole alliance, your take on threat landscape currently, where it's heading.
Yeah. First of all, I just can, no surprisingly, back up everything you have said. I would like to step a little bit back, not looking 10 years in the future. What is happening now? And just 2 weeks ago, the Assistant Secretary General of NATO for Cyber mentioned in a cyber defense conference that NATO, that the nations have to adopt a wartime mentality.
Sure.
We are not there yet. When you look at the news, there are the reports that Russian airplanes crossing the border of Estonia, Russian airplanes recently crossed the border of Lithuania. Where are the reports about cyber attacks? They are not there, because it's fancy to show an airplane. What can you show in cyber? To make the public, the society aware that we are under attack. Even when we talk about ransomware, what do you show? Computers that are not working? That's nothing interesting in media. You don't show footage of 30 seconds non-working computers.
Right.
You show the footage of airplanes, of people in uniform, of tanks, of guns being fired. You hear the sound of war in reality. Where is the sound of cyber? To make our society aware. And in the past, we can all report that most of the state governments have worked in silos. So internal was different from military, we didn't work together. Now more and more nations are adopting whole government approach. But I think that's even not going far enough. We should really adapt a whole society approach. And you mentioned it, and also the ambassador from Australia mentioned it. We have to train our citizens.
Sure.
It's no worth in training our some 100 incident response team members and so on, or some CEOs. We have to train our whole society. We have to train 100 million of people all over the world, billions of people all over the world. And that's the threat, because we are not there yet to have this mindset in the people's mind that we are currently in a cyber war.
Is that something that you are now also as a center for the alliance, for NATO, are actively now pushing forward to change that within NATO? Do you see the new lessons learned from the war in Ukraine that you should be pushing for alliance to tackle this?
Yeah, for sure. We are helping governments by research on the legal side. So also there, we as governments are bound to international law, and that is good. I don't doubt that. But how is international law currently applied in cyberspace? International law is decades or even centuries old, where nobody thought about cyberspace. And if now a cyber attack happens, and you just have to gather your legal advisors, and they have to figure out how to react on that, that's too late. That's not current, that's not relevant. So we have now already to look into how to apply international law in cyberspace, and the center is doing quite a great job in that. On just recently, we published the handbook on developing state cyber strategy. We have now issued the second version of the Cyber Commander's Handbook, just to give a guideline to the commanders how to act in cyberspace, because we have also to focus in the military perspective on multi-domain operations. You will not win a war in cyberspace, but you might lose a war in cyberspace. And the tank platoon commanders and the leaders of the Air Force and Navy ship captain has to be aware of how much cyber he actually has on his vessel. And that's something we have to teach them. They are not aware of that, how they depend. And plus, looking back at my former position in Germany, 10 years ago, there was a regulation developed how to react on a cyber crisis in the military world. And there was stated, yeah, we will pull together a board. And we asked, how do you do that? Because partially the headquarters are located in Bonn, partially in Berlin. Oh yeah, we will do a VTC. No, you won't do a VTC when there is a cyber crisis. So that was written in the first draft because the people were still in their mentality of the old time. We are getting together quite easily, and VTC is working. That's an emerging technology. 10 years ago, we go for VTC. And we have to train the people to really think about what does a real cyber crisis means. And that is something the center is working on. These are tracks that we are including in our exercises that we are doing.
Thanks. I think if we ran through the landscape, I don't know if organizers are disappointed, but my takeaway is we are not super concerned about new technologies. We actually are concerned how to run holistic processes across very diverse stakeholders, some of them being in private sector, some of them being, critical infrastructure, some of them government, military, sort of very diverse environment which we need to align. Yep. And so I think I'll try to then speak of this now question and discuss with you this challenge of resilience with that diversity of stakeholders and risks on a national level, but also internationally. So not only we need to find the good way to cooperate within our own countries between different structures, but also across allies. And we know very well that adversaries are rather good in cooperating and sharing bad techniques and the way to attack. Can I ask, I'll try to mix up so we are not the same maybe sequence, but I will go back to you on, and knowing Latvia's excellent cooperation with Canada on threat hunting, can you share some more best practices how we can be quicker and better in this challenge within nationally, but then across the border?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk to the Latvia piece first. For cyber resiliency, cyber deterrence, the best way to get through that really is partnerships. Partnerships do a couple things. First thing for partnerships, to a common adversary, what you're doing is scaling yourself in terms of size against a common threat. And so from a cyber deterrence perspective, as you patch together partnerships, your surface is much larger, deterring from a cyber perspective. But also in that work, there is, the forces are compelled to be interoperable and sharing best practices, being able to work with each other, noticing anomalies, sharing cyber threat intelligence in terms of cyber threat actors that are out there. With the Latvian CERT.LV, Varis had briefed earlier today about a threat hunt cookbook, in fact, that we've put together, which just codifies all of that interoperability work and a little bit of a how-to. And then as you onboard other partners as well, bringing them into your playbook to be able to do the threat hunts together in the same way. And then again, not only you increasing your interoperability amongst partners, but your frontage, and then starting to scale against a very sizable adversary in the cyber domain. And that's not just for the cyber domain. Another thing that Varis had in his briefing was a really neat illustration of the cyber domain and how it crosses all of the other domains, land, sea, air, space. And so the efforts that you do in partnerships, the efforts that you do in interoperability strengthens all of the other domains and their ability to, from a military perspective, do their missions and operations. And so it's quite critical for cyber resiliency, cyber deterrence. It's a strategic imperative, I think, to partner, to seek, commonality, interoperability. And, Jessica hit on it as well in the opener and the scene setter. In the Indo-Pacific, we're doing the same thing. And so with partners looking at Indo-Pacific, specifically, Canada, Australia, UK, US, New Zealand, looking at partnering with specific partners in the Indo-Pacific, making sure that we are able to increase their cyber resiliency, and together in that conglomerate partnership, increasing the frontage against a very sizable and very powerful, cyber threat, and making sure that we assist, mentor, I would say build capacity in the Indo-Pacific partners, the same as we would do here in Europe. And so, back to the original question, cyber resiliency, an amazing way to get cyber deterrence is through partnerships for frontage and partnerships for interoperability.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad to hear that, but I will ask Tallinn now, the center in Tallinn, are we doing better? So I actually remember myself being in job of Ministry of Defense and having these annual discussions of, are we able to do better information sharing? Are we there yet? Are we better in NATO level? Speaking of partnerships, are we there now on cybersecurity information sharing in a comfortable level to be able to act quickly? And then maybe I can ask also CrowdStrike to comment, because I think that's a big advantage. I always envied back then in that position to private sector, because you service many clients and you can deploy, that knowledge that you see attack in one sector, right? You can also protect then the others with that knowledge. Are we there on the government side?
I dare to say we are not there yet, but we are on the right track. For example, NATO is now currently implementing the NIC, so the integration center, where we pull together military and the civilian world in one center to get a situational awareness all across the NATO realm in cyberspace, which is actually the whole world. So, because we are attacked from all over the world. And looking specifically at our center, we have realized that we have to work on that. And for example, we are now looking at the 2 exercises that we are conducting each year. The CCDCOE is conducting lock shields that most of you have most probably heard of or even taken part in. And currently we do the cross-sword, which is offensive cyber operations. And even we dare to say that NATO is dealing with offensive cyber operations, even that NATO itself has no offensive capabilities. So when we are now looking at these exercises for lock shields, over the last year, we did not accept single nations building a blue team alone. So we already forced nations to partner with at least one allied, one partner, most probably even with 2 or 3. So we have already a kind of communication requirement within a blue team. And now we are looking into possibilities how to even partner between blue teams, getting away from the competition that we have over the years implemented in log shields, sadly, that there is a winner, that we have a score, and we actually want to go away from that and having blue teams really helping each other. So cyber threat intelligence. Not surprisingly, the attacks on each blue team in the log shields is slightly the same. So can one blue team help other blue teams by announcing, hey, that was the attack that hit us. That is how we detected it. We are now looking also in the after action of the exercise, that in the after action report, we do not only writing, hey, it was a great exercise and the food was good, but actually that we pull the red teams and the blue teams together and learn from each other. That the blue team is telling the red team, hey, that is how we found that you are attacking us. That some blue teams are reporting on, this is how we track the attack, so that other blue teams can learn from that. At the moment, it's a 1 week exercise, and then more or less it's forgotten. And we want really to force the blue teams to think about what they have learned during the exercise for a longer time. And maybe even including or combining the two exercises, the defensive exercise log shields and the cross swords, to something like cross shields, how to work together as a blue team and a red team. And also that is something that I think is not trained enough in the modern world or in the current world. So the blue team tends to raise their shields, put up all the firewalls, and by that maybe hindering offensive cyber operations that are maybe required as a deterrence measure or to actually stop the attack against our own networks.
Mm-hmm. So we do participate as CrowdStrike in multiple exercises. Log Shields is one of them. We do participate in cross swords. I think last year we played with like 5 or 6 different teams with logged shields. I did it myself too, playing for different teams. And it's amazing experience, not only on the technical side, but probably even more interestingly on the human side, on the human aspect, and how different teams from different countries react to the same scenarios, basically. That's super interesting. But to your previous point, Christoph, about security not being sexy enough to show it as something in TV versus the drones and stuff like that, it reminded me about late 90s and Kasparov playing chess against Big Blue. Mm-hmm. And that was something that was actually transmitted in TV. I mean, in the first round, that was just a snapshot. And the second time, it was just like full thing. So if people can get excited about playing chess, why they cannot get excited about, cyber warfare? It's super interesting, really. I mean, I could imagine like, the red team playing against the blue team, and the blue team being the AI agents, for example. And that would be something I would like to watch myself. And I bet that there are other people like me that would do so. So maybe that's really the government thing, that the government does not, appreciate the interest from the people that would like to know more. And let me connect that back to some of my personal experience. So I'm a voluntary firefighter, and I train young people how to use technology and how to avoid certain traps that are out there in the cyber world. And I'm always surprised when I do that, how advanced they are in abusing technology, not using, abusing technology, right? How they bypass the restrictions put on AI, how they use, for example, Google Translate to proxy a website that is blocked in the school. So they are very creative. they would be interested in if we were able to position cyber warfare as a topic for everyone. So I'm with you on that. Maybe we should really do more, and maybe AI is a thing really to get people more excited about this.
But if I can push you on the cooperation part, since we started to discuss what can we all do together better. You know, information sharing, you mentioned that is still something that can be improved. What do you see from private sector? Is there a way we can do better, or we have to invent some other ways of cooperation mechanisms that gives advances our resilience? Because there are many barriers. Some of them are bureaucratic, legal, you know, privacy, data protections, political. Do you see we can do better? Do you have some ideas what we can do differently in a cyber domain between different partnerships that could enhance?
We can do a lot of better on the technical side. So one of the things, so I consider myself a data junkie. I like data. I log everything at my home, really, like everything, literally. And the problem I have, and the problem that I see from the people that I talk to, is that we have the data in different formats. So the data is not normalized. And so we have this wonderful concept of SIEM systems that will take the data in, parse the data, and then we can go create that custom detections. We can do threat hunting based on this data, right? We can use possibly AI to help us out to deal with this data. But ultimately, if we cannot have a common format for the data, then we are unnecessarily losing CPU power, memory, resources to parse that data, normalize this data, and make them usable. And that's something that it's been out there for years already, and we cannot find a common language that everybody would agree on. And let's say it's elastic ECS. Maybe that is an open format for that AWS is using, right? Let's talk about it. Let's find the common ground so we all can consume the data in the same way.
Mm-hmm. So you thinking about some standardized data possibilities?
Yes, to have a common schema for the data. So, for example, if you imagine, so going back to this, you know, the problem of ordinary people, ordinary citizens. They have the routers, they have Wi-Fi's at home and everything, right? So those devices have a certain format of data that they can produce, that we could consume, right? But every device has a different format for it. Why not standardize that, make it as one of the priorities at the EU level to say, all right, if you want to sell a home router to EU citizen, you have to be compliant to that format so we can make the use of it more easily, right? Mm-hmm. And that the same thing for the corporate world. And this is the basics, right? And then we can build on top of it how we should do threat hunting with it. Should AI be part of it? Like where to go with it? But the basics has to be addressed in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've seen also some other initiatives, like I think CISA put out this MOB, this material of software, also labeling software's different components, in such manner, you know, giving also in a way data to be able to automatize and sort of predict or see different vulnerabilities or patches needed, and etc.
For the most of the time, we have enough data. But we have problem with how to route this data, how to make better use of this data.
Okay. Natalia, back to AI.
Back to AI.
Back to AI. Where do you see opportunities there in partnerships? Is that sort of a new AI drive that can help us maybe align data and achieve new level of capabilities?
Right. So we need to remember that AI is a technology, right? It's a universal technology, which in a technology toolbox involves different varieties of technologies, and obviously can be applied to cybersecurity by good actors as well as by bad actors. And I agree. I would like to continue reflecting on what the previous speakers said. capabilities building for us as a country, but also for Europe and our allies outside Europe. And obviously we need to learn from each other, but also do not forget we need to learn from Ukraine, our Ukrainian colleagues in cybersecurity. Ukraine is probably the most cyber-attacked country in the world and has been so for 10 years. So the flip side that they have built cybersecurity capabilities in private sector, in government, and also in universities. So we can learn from what they have already experienced because they are a battlefield where a lot of things are being tested. So the second aspect I would like to reflect upon what you said is this awareness raising, right? And this comes hand to hand with awareness raising about AI, because AI right now is very much threat multiplier, particularly in what is known as social engineering, all this phishing, all this wishing, in deep fakes, impersonifications, email, malicious email at scale, etc. And so when we talk about upskilling in cyber, also in AI, we need to distinguish several layers. First layer, like top layer, is people who are trained to become cyber engineers or cyber experts, and obviously excellent work is being done in many countries, including in Latvia. You are involved yourself in the Cyber Academy program in Riga Technical University. I think there is another program being scaled up, rolled out by Technical University and Latvian University to train both cyber experts and also train people from industry to gain cyber skills. So this is sort of top level. Then we have this medium level where each company, each institution needs to make sure that their IT systems, their AI systems are secure. Get the basics right. Right, so that they're updated. Someone mentioned there was vulnerabilities in Cisco which were not updated from 2003 on the previous stage. Getting the basics right and raising the level, raising the ground. And so this is a second level where we can do a lot on a national level, but also learn from countries outside Latvia, from countries outside of Europe, and see what we can do. Because again, AI is for the time being is threat multiplier. And obviously awareness raising, educating an average man on the street, what are these deep fakes? What are these telephone impersonifications? Not to picking numbers which you do not recognize. And obviously CERT is already doing very much. They launched a campaign about scammers, so we also can work together and collaborate in this aspect, because AI, National Center of AI in Latvia, one of our strategic priorities is security, and another is education, and obviously security involves also cybersecurity. So we will be working together with many of you to sort of bring this level on, bring this AI and cyber skills up on many levels.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. I am getting the questions, but I'm trying to some of the angles integrate. And actually, Natalie, there was a question on AI and AI literacy as a part of resilience. So let's put it. Do you see that push? And are you optimistic that we will also be able to get this done here in Latvia, but in a broader scope?
So yes, so I'm sort of cautious AI realist, what I call myself. So, but we also cannot. And AI is in a way similar. We cannot with cybersecurity. We cannot. There will never be a day where we can say cybersecurity work is done. Mm-hmm. Now we can rest on our laurels, go to a party, enjoy ourselves. No, it's part of our life. Like we brush our teeth, right? We need to do cybersecurity work. AI literacy. I think this is also will become a common layer of literacy. We are all literate in a way that we can read. We are literate in a way we can write. We will be literate, and this is the future where we are moving. We will be literate in a way that we will understand what is AI. This is not one person's work. It's really work of the whole society and many institutions. And again, I would say that there are multiple layers, AI experts and people incorporating AI into their daily jobs, doctors or lawyers, and then AI awareness, which now goes very much hand-to-hand with cyber awareness, because the threats are coming exactly from this area. AI multiplies threat and cybersecurity. So there is awareness campaign, but also different ways we can develop critical thinking. And obviously this is critical thinking. It's easier said than done, but at least learning or sort of getting a reflex of asking ourselves, what am I sharing? Where is this person getting my data? What is this email telling me? So it's a long-term work, and it's not the work that will be done one day. But as I say, the best thing to start was yesterday. The second best is today. So we are going to go ahead.
Thanks. We still have 10 minutes, so I'll put in some of the questions I see are very practical. There is a question about is there ways how we can use more civilian ethical hackers to help military systems? There are very practical questions about data centers, where one should keep his data to be secure. How do you protect, if there are some good advice on that segment. But I wanted to pack that sort of some practical questions. In NATO's recent decision that there needs to be investments of 1.5%, and I'm very much hopeful that cybersecurity is part of that 1.5% outside the military, because again, going back to having a lot of critical infrastructure, private sector necessities to increase that resilience. So, looking forward, investing effort in that resilience, do you see that these budgets and that there is awareness and how we can do that better to achieve that holistic resilience in digital terms? And then if you also want to reflect on ethical hacking for militaries, that would be an add-on question specifically.
I'll try to remember that one. But, interesting about the 1.5%, and just listening to my colleagues on the panel here, cyber defense not being attractive to the citizens of a country, but kind of equate that to a goaltender in European football or ice hockey, and you can make 1 million saves, but that one time that ball goes in or that puck goes in is when everyone notices. And in Canada, that has finally been noticed by our nation, and that's translating into funding and also placing importance on cyber defense, cybersecurity, and making sure that we're protected in the cyber domain. And so, even in Canada, by the end of this fiscal year, we will spend 2%. And in our, new to be released national security strategy, first one since 2006, in our current defense policy, Our North Strong and Free, it's all cyber. Well, cyber, Arctic, and a few other things, but cyber being a common denominator. Mm-hmm. And so, our citizens, our country has woken up. There's been a ball, a puck gone into the net, and that's translated into government funding, and to the point now where we need to find a way to be able to spend that money, because we're not used to having it in that size and magnitude. But it just goes to show the importance and the privileging of cyber over a lot of other things, even social needs and excuse me, things like that in Canada. And so really in an interesting space right now from a 2% perspective. With that, though, goes a lot of responsibility in terms of making sure that we apply this money in a proper way, and still relevant and tied to everything that was mentioned before. In cyber resiliency, cyber defense, doing it with partners, making sure we're focusing on the threats at hand, a key one being critical infrastructure, but also recapitalizing on maybe atrophy that has occurred over the last 10, 20 years where we weren't maybe paying attention to it. But it is time now, time yesterday, but time now to address cyber capability gaps. And luckily, at least from a Canadian perspective, we are doing that. And then the next bound is looking at 3.5%, 5%, afterwards. And so luckily, again, we have citizen backing, we have policy and legislation that supports it, so you know, in a good space there. For the last bit on ethical hackers, love these guys. I love these guys because you know, we incorporate them into red teaming. And what we would like to do is incorporate more civilian experts in that field to replicate our worst day, and then fail forward and learn and iterate and get better, and then have them come at us with something else. And so employing these type of very skilled folks is essential in red teaming and practicing a form of cyber resiliency in its own way. And so, you know, we find that critical in terms of preparation for missions and reducing mission risk.
Do you see that 1.5% at NATO being available also to strengthen cyber resilience, or it's going to go somewhere, or competition is too tough of all the needs?
Again, we have lived in peace gladly for quite some decades. And now, going back to my German roots, our Chancellor has created this word Zeitenwende, which means the time has changed with the full invasion of Russia into Ukraine. So then people suddenly got stressed. Oh, now we have to do something. And what is the human doing? We remember, okay, what have we done 30 years ago? And under stress, we do not develop new ideas. We go back to what we have learned in the past, for what we have been drilled. So at the beginning, there was clear a tendency, let's buy more airplanes. We bought in Germany the F-35 from the US. We built up tanks. And but now, after 2 years, 3 years, I see that people got aware that cyber is really the thing, and going to multi-domain, we have to invest also in cyber, and I hope that this will be done. There's another thing concerning spending money. I think, looking, for example, at drones, we have to spend money to enable industry to deliver a capability when we require it. I think it would be senseless if now Canada, Germany, or other nations are spending millions of euros or dollars in buying 10,000s of drones, putting them in a shelf, and in half a year they are old. Because there have been new developments. How to use a drone, how to defend against a drone. So, but we need it on the spot when there is an attack, and that's something where our procurement system isn't ready, at least in Germany. It's not ready, and I see you nodding.
It's challenging equally in Canada, yeah.
So, but do you mean by that we need to invest in cybersecurity capabilities equally, right? Not procuring necessarily solutions, but actually developing, and do you see that trend and happening?
I see it happening, but we are not there yet, and we have to convince nations, we have to convince governments, we have to convince the accountants to spend money on something where they don't get an immediately thing back to put in the shelf or in their accountant books, but invest in capability. And for example, Germany is now investing in ammunition industry to be ready to have ammunition on stage when we require it. And also ammunition gets old.
So, CrowdStrike, we have a couple of practical questions I can ask you from the audience that is on data center. Maybe you can give advice, good advice, where to keep your data, you know, in your country, put in other countries, how to operate that security better. And then there is also a question on supply chain. You know, across the borders, how do we keep that resilience? I don't know, maybe from a private sector perspective, you have some suggestions. I guess it's also a new threat in a way, supply chain. It's not maybe very innovative in technology manner, but it's a threat currently heavily discussed. Do you see that in technology, how we can across the borders strengthen ourselves against that supply chain threat? And then the data center advice.
Sure. So absolutely, it's a big threat. Supply chain is a problem. It's been a problem for years already. We all remember SolarWinds and what happened, right? Most recently, F5 has fallen a victim of a successful attack from a Chinese threat actor. And as much as they are a threat and they are a big unknown, if you look at it closely, this is not about an atomic action that we cannot discover. They always come in context. And that context is something that we already know how to capture. Nobody is attacking, let's say, networking gear just for the purpose to have a presence on the physical device somewhere in the world, right? They do it because they want to exfiltrate data. They do it because they want to have some control over the environment and so on and so forth. And these additional steps, these breadcrumbs that they leave behind, is something that we can catch already. But we have to be more careful with and pay more attention to multi-domain attacks. That's something that we see as CrowdStrike heavily, that the attackers are better and better blending in between these different areas, from cloud to on-prem, from on-prem to identity to somewhere, right? And we've built the traditional defenses about certain domains, and now we have to connect these domains, interconnect these domains. And then we have to have that data interoperability between these different environments and have the logic to detect the attacks and protect against the threat actors.
So I see AI as a potential assistant in sort of getting these multi-domains connected and certainly in analytics and forecasts. Natalie, if I can ask you the last, and I know we are almost out of the time, you being now in a new job on a national level on AI Center, anything from this panel that you found helpful in prioritizing, what needs to be done immediately or in incoming term?
Right, security is obviously our priority number one. That was clear to me before I started this job. And what you said, building partnership, because by then you can give capabilities that you don't have actually. So in sort of partnering on a national level, European level, international level is obviously key. And I really liked your suggestion that, we can have a hacking game where there would be a team of agentic malicious actors. Maybe we should work on that. That could be very cool, and it could be also attract more people to cybersecurity, because it's a very promising field. And maybe this is another thing when we need to work together in Latvia to show that AI is very sexy, right? Everyone wants to do. But cybersecurity is fascinating. There is a human aspect. There is AI. There is technology. There is hacking. There is movement. So maybe working together with cybersecurity expert and sort of bringing the prestige of the profession, sort of spreading the word that how fascinating it is to work in cybersecurity.
Well, with this, a round of applause for panelists. I thank you very much for sharing diverse experiences. I think a lot of homework, nothing new, but I think we are getting really popular with security and cybersecurity, so hands-on working together and achieving results, hopefully. Thank you.
And a round of applause to our excellent moderator, Ieva Ilves.
Thank you.
Christmas has come early, and thanks to our partners, some gifts, Latvian-made gifts to our dear speakers. Give some more applause. That is more sweeter than gifts, but of course,
well, yes.
you'll be warm.
Oh, wow.
There's something tasty. Thank you very much, Ieva, for you as well.
Winter's
Socks
coming.
and lollipops, as they say in these boxes. That's thanks to our partners who provided these nice gifts. And right now, we will go on a coffee break. Just